So for my reading coach, I'll give you a little bit of the history of how we implemented my reading coach. And I said 2008, but I think actually it was 2007. Has it been that? Yeah. Okay. I knew it was in the spring. This is sometimes where my eagerness to hurry up and do things.
You're right. It was spring of 2008.
Was it spring of 2008? Right. I think I remember, and Joyce can help me clarify. I think, once again, I knew that there were about 5% of our kids that we weren't reaching. And she came in, and a lot of times I go with my intuition. There was something about it that said, I'm going to trust her, and I'm going to see what this is. And she came in and showed it to me, and actually showed a group of us. And I think she agreed to let us pilot it with maybe 2 or 3 children. And I went in and looked at it, and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. So had her come back, and I had identified 21 specific children who I wanted to purchase it for. But in order for me to do this, I was also buying Lexia, I think, at the same time, and a few other programs in my district said, you're going to have to buy a server. So I invested $5,000 in a server, which for campus is quite a bit of money. And then after 2 years of implementation, the district decided to purchase it for everyone. So I ended up shooting myself in the foot with getting the server, but it was well worth the investment. What happened actually with my reading coach was, as other campuses came over to visit, they would see it, be curious. They would tell their area superintendent and or special ed, and that's how the special ed department, even though I had invited them to come over when Joyce presented the first time, they weren't that interested at first, but they eventually became interested. So we trained our staff and we began implementation. For us, it's primarily used for our Tier 3 students, our dyslexia students, and we had 27 dyslexic students last year, and our special education students. So we serve about 50 students. We've experienced success with my reading coach and shared success with other campuses. I'll share 2 stories. Jeremy comes immediately to mind, and you may have already heard about Jeremy. Jeremy was one of our students who was emotionally disturbed, is emotionally disturbed. He didn't perceive himself as being a reader because his behaviors had so often interfered with his learning, and the older he got, the more his self-esteem was interfering with his ability to read. And so he was one of the very first children that I wanted to put on my reading coach to see how he would do. And of course, with the headphones, and what's the man's name? Jim. Yes. Okay. So he would get so frustrated, he would take the headphones off, and he broke 2 sets of headphones. 3. Yes. So we kept buying headphones because I really saw the progress that he was making. And within a year, Jeremy was reading chapter books. And it was amazing. Outside in the mornings, his mom worked in our district, and she was just so thankful and so appreciative of us letting him go on my reading coach. And it was just amazing to see the growth that he made and to see himself start believing in himself as a reader. He would go to the cafeteria in the mornings. Every place I would see him, he would be reading books, and I never thought that I would see that with Jeremy. So it was absolutely amazing. Yes.
Can I tell
Yes,
this?
absolutely.
I don't think you'll tell it. He told us at the principal's breakfast, and he said, it was just music to my ears. He told that story, and he said, what's 3 sets of headsets for success like that with a student? That's the type of principal that can have a school like this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it was worth it. So finally, I think it was 2009, it was in fall of 2009, the district office finally started expressing an interest in seeing what we were doing with my reading coach and actually deployed it district-wide. And unfortunately, some of our schools still aren't using it, but the ones who are, I think, are experiencing great success as well. Other computer-based programs that we use are Lexia, Anisios, which I'm I'm very proud to say every time I have visitors come over and they see the Spanish program, there's nothing out there, and we were very fortunate to get it when we did. We have it, I think, on four computers, so that's a great opportunity for someone who would like to help some kids who need it. Aerobics, and we do use destination math. So, of course, the issue of, well, how do you schedule? Because that's the challenge of how do you actually get children into tiers on the computer, working with the interventionist, not interfere with their classroom instruction, and it is a challenge. These are just some thoughts that I put together, but I'll also talk you through my process that I use in case as you work with principals, and I'm willing to talk to or work with any principals. I have my card and a brochure I'll leave with you. I'm willing to work with any principals, just give them ideas to consider. But you have to plan with a purpose. So scheduling and placement decisions always, for us, always begins with our special ed students, our Tier 3 students, and our dyslexia students. Okay? So we're very intentional. In the spring, it takes us about a day and a half to take our students. Okay, these are going to be our co-teach classes. These are going to be our support facilitate classes, actually thinking intentionally about which children should be together and which children shouldn't, which ones need the most support, minimal support, where are Tier 3 students, how's their progress monitoring, are they possibly going to end up being a referral, should we put them in the co-teach or the support facilitate, all those things, and it takes a lot of time, but you have to do it. So then we start thinking about, okay, where do we have computers around the building? Where are intervention people able to work with children? But everything else then flows from that. So that's the center. You start with those considerations. But you also have to look at maximizing the resources and time that you have. So for example, if parents are willing to bring their children to school on Saturday, or if parents are willing to drop off their child at 7:15, then we do that. If, maximizing that time before school starts, at dismissal, if a child's on a bus that never gets there till 3:30, well, why is he sitting in the bus line for 30 minutes? He could be in the computer lab working on destination math or Lexia or my reading coach. So all of those things, you really have to be intentional and think through every single child, the time that you have, the resources that you have. And like I said, getting to know every single child. And I do give ownership to the skills specialist, the dyslexia teacher, the special ed staff, and the classroom teachers. Some schools, and this is just our approach, but I believe it sends the wrong message to say, a lot of schools do this, some very good friends of mine who are principals do this, but I don't agree with it. It doesn't work for us. It's to just say, okay, we're going to do interventions from 2 to 3. That's our intervention time, from 2 to 3. For me, that doesn't work. Number one, it sends a wrong message to the classroom teacher because interventions actually are going on all the time. I think it sends a message to teachers that we don't have to worry about interventions until 2 o'clock. Well, by 2 o'clock, the child's already forgotten what you were instructing at 8:30 in the morning. So interventions happen all the time, the closest point of instruction that it happened. So it needs to be all day. So we use some flexibility with that. Once again, my skills specialists, they do not have lunch duty and they don't have paperwork other than case management for EIT.
May I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Are those teachers part of your staff, or were they extra people that you hired to support? Are they district?
Sure. I'll go through that.
Sorry.
No, that's a good question. The district gives us one. So the district pays for one skills specialist, and I pay for 5 out of either state comp ed or Title I funds. I pay for 2 out of state compensatory ed, and I pay for 3 out of Title I. And the way I have it configured, I have a language arts skills specialist for 3rd and 4th grade. I have a math skills specialist or intervention for 3rd and 4th grade. I have a 2nd grade interventionist. I have a primary interventionist. I have a bilingual interventionist for all grades now, but it used to be just 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and I used to have a primary bilingual interventionist for K1, but that's the position that I had to let go due to funding. Are there any more questions? Please feel free to stop me anytime.
So basically those teachers are just interventionists.
That's what they do. Yes. And their schedule for the most part is Monday to Thursday, groups all day long. Friday, some Tier 3 kids, but mainly that's their day for to get caught up with paperwork. And it's not uncommon to see them working with children before school starts, even during lunch, after school, whatever it takes.